today you talked about VUCA and
Yes.
global agility.
Yes.
What does that mean?
So VUCA is a very broad term that specifically means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is this is how we're describing the status of things in the world today. And I started by talking about what's the difference of that VUCA that we have today with the VUCA in the old times. And the difference is actually the speed and the level of interactivity caused by globalization. But that's at a very high level discussion, and today we try to bring that to the individual level. I mean, how it impacts people in organizations and how we can respond to that.
You know, sometimes I wonder if I mean, we think that we live in such a high-paced world, but I know that there are like texts from like the 19th century where they talk about, you know, the high pace of change and everything. And one of my favorite photos there's this picture of New York in the year 1900. And there's a street where it's just horses everywhere. It's like horses. And then just 13 years later, it's the same street and there's just cars everywhere. So there's no
huge
So it's just I mean, even sort of back then, this kind of quite major change to society, this big shift happened quite rapidly.
Yes, you were right, because if you look in terms of history and in some regions of the world, VUCA was a reality all the time. It is there was no non-VUCA.
No, that's actually a good point. It's the strange thing is that we have had a stable
for a period to realize that now is VUCA coming back, but VUCA is not coming back. VUCA has always been in some parts of the world an everyday thing.
The other topic for today was global agility, and how do these two sort of fit together?
My connection here, the connection I was trying to make is take the VUCA as an external tendency, or how the world is changing, and going back to the response. I mean, agility is a response to deal with this high frequency and intense change that we have. But it's still a very general term. Global agility, as we talk today, it's is still a very too general. Agility, what's agility? Is to do everything that we have done in the past, looking at culture differences, looking at trust building, and doing that in an extremely rapid way. So it's a new term, but the basics of this process is the same as we had before, in my opinion. So I was telling about the workshop we did, and it was called Grow Up or Wake Up, because I talk about the stage of development of adults in general. And you actually help people in companies that depending on what the stage of development they are in. So I also deconstruct a little bit this idea of transformation, because self-transformation is the last stage of development on an individual level. But if you think about on a company level, it's the same process. But what we did was we went and found the basic psychological model of growth, cognitive growth. How do people continue growing even after they stop growing physically? They continue going through stages of development. So we explored that, and that was very good, because it's called integral theories, and it's talking about the complexity development.
With the spiral dynamics and such
yes.
things, or not?
It's in that area. It's in that umbrella of theories in a way. But I take more specifically the part that has to do with adult development because is the psychological part of development. But it's very applicable. You can actually help someone to grow according to the stage that they are. If you don't know what the stage they are, how can you help? And when you said about you're helping companies to grow and transform when they have this part of it.
We talked a little bit about responding to change and living in a VUCA world, and that some people are afraid of this change and they are stressed by it, and they are almost panic by it in some cases. But I mean, we also raised the point that it's actually change is also good. It's necessary for growth and for development.
Yes, exactly. You can respond to the changes on a positive or on a negative way. If you come from a very safe environment, you are in this comfort zone, and then these changes are maybe too much for you. But what we discussed today is actually you can actually choose to be positive or negative. It depends on your awareness and how much you bring all this abstract concept and put them into behaviors, so you can actually train them and improve them. But you were right about having this option, and it's actually a choice we will make on how to respond. But we only have a choice if we have awareness. If we don't have the awareness, you don't have a choice.
And if
you just react to it.
What did you call it? The when the brain just reacts on
it's
impulse,
called
almost.
rapid reaction decision.
And if and the fear center in the brain is very strong. So it prevents us from maybe making.
Because we have some limitations in our capacities to respond to that amount of stress. And some people just switch off, stop. It really impacts their performance because they gets them paralyzed. But you also can train yourself. Of course, it doesn't come naturally. We don't develop and evolve naturally. We have to be forced. And VUCA world is forcing us to rethink and reevaluate. And this is a force of transformation. So if you see on a positive way.
But it's part of this, I guess, is exposing yourself to stress is to a limited degree is necessary for growth as well.
Well, sometimes when we don't expose ourselves, the universe exposes us.
Exactly. So the yin and the yang. You can't have one without the other.
Exactly. Sometimes crisis is the best thing you can have if you take that in a positive way. But it requires a lot of capacity for complexity. This is what we talked about, that is very individual. But
in a way, I guess what you are saying is that we need to prepare for an enormous plan for crisis, because it will happen.
Is the normal base.
And then maybe it's not even a crisis anymore when you start to approach it like that.
In the West, this is how we explain, but if you look at the East traditions, they talk about impermanence. Impermanence is just, and this is a term used 2,500 years ago. Impermanence, things are changing. So we have the perception of safety, but it's not reality really.
Where can people find you, and what do you do?
Okay, so I am a intercultural and organizational psychologist, and I'm at the moment working for TCO International, and we are doing projects to accelerate global agility. And so we are a step forward in the sense that we have experience with trust building, with intercultural competence development, and now the agility comes in as a new term, but it actually means doing everything we have done before, but more intensely, because there's no way back. There's no way back in terms of these changes.
That's maybe good final words for
yes.
for the video. There's no way back.
Thank you.
Thank you.